Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And I'm Dr. Benjamin Alter, your host, the host of this podcast. I'm a naturopathic doctor and holistic lifestyle medicine practitioner, just like our guest today on the show, Dr. Charley Cropley. If it's your first time stopping through, hello and welcome. Thanks for being here. Happy to have you. And I would be so grateful if you'd take a few seconds to subscribe and to rate and to leave a comment or review on this podcast, on this video, wherever you're tuning in from. Thank you for being there and thanks for your support and feedback. And our guest today is someone who I have looked up to and respected since before becoming a naturopathic doctor. Actually, I met Dr. Charley Cropley the summer before I started naturopathic medical school. And Dr. Cropley was one of the elder physicians at a retreat for naturopathic doctors and naturopathic medical students. And he was revered as a lifestyle medicine practitioner, a doctor who used minimal amounts of medicines in the form of herbs and supplements and all of those things that we are familiar with today. And I just thought it was super cool that he was able to harness the true healing power of nature and evoke self-healing with minimal medicinal herbs or foods or plants, or he uses foods, of course, as well as exercise and movement are critical. But there's more to it. There's more to self-healing than just diet and lifestyle. And we dive into that in depth in this conversation. What is self-healing? What his practice looks like now, how his journey as a naturopathic physician has evolved from, really focusing on herbs and supplements and now focusing on evoking the self-healing potential without any sort of intervention whatsoever other than inquiry and, compassion and kindness, which are really the most medicinal feelings that we can evoke inside of ourselves. So Dr. Cropley graduated from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in 1979. That's where I went to school as well. However, I graduated a few decades later. He has been a practicing naturopathic doctor, teacher, and author in the Boulder, Denver area for the last 35 years. Dr. Cropley has trained hundreds of doctors in his methods of nutrition and self-healing, and he is the author of numerous articles, books, and courses. Dr. Cropley frequently lectures at the colleges of naturopathic medicine and is widely regarded as one of today's leading thinkers and teachers in the philosophy and practice of self-healing. So, if you are familiar with me and my podcast and my mission, you would think, oh, well, then Dr. Cropley is a great fit for this podcast. And it's true, we had a great conversation as I was going through Denver and Boulder the last weekend, was able to connect with Charley as well as some other friends. So I really do hope you enjoy this conversation and feel free to connect with Charley on Facebook. You can find him there and you can find more information at charleycropley.com. charleycropley.com. And before we dive into this conversation, I just wanted to remind listeners that you have an opportunity to receive 20% off of our Medicinal Living online course. This course is designed to guide you from sickness into health using nothing but life itself as medicine. Specifically diving into nutritional science and movement and air and breathing and water and hydration, as well as mind-body practices evoking the healing potential that you have through cultivating a healing mindset. So much, so deep in this course, and you can find out more at www.alter.health/course. And the code that we have for you podcast listeners out there is Alter Your Health to receive 20% off of this course, which you will have access to forever. So if you'd like to learn more, go to www.alter.health/course and use the code Alter Your Health. All right, you guys, this is it. We're diving into this wonderful conversation with Charley Cropley. Hope you do enjoy, and thanks for your feedback and your comments and your reviews of this episode. feel free to also share it to someone who you think Charley might be inspirational for. He has been for me, he has been for so many. So let's spread Charley out there in the world, and please do enjoy this conversation. Sit back, relax, and take a breath. Here we go with Dr. Charley Cropley. Dr. Charley Cropley, thank you so much for having me in your home, in your practice, and connecting and sharing this conversation with me. Welcome to the Alter Your Health podcast.
Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great being here.
And though I wanted to start this conversation by sharing with you like how I was first introduced to your work and who you are, and that was at the Revitalization Retreat. You know, the retreat for naturopathic doctors and students that takes place out there in Oregon, and it was before entering my first year of medical school.
Really?
Before my first year as a naturopathic student. I didn't know what the heck I was getting into. I just was told that there were going to be amazing people sharing amazing wisdom. And when I arrived and I was looking at all the names of all the doctors who were presenting, I saw, Dr. Charley Cropley, Dr. Jared Zeff, all the elders of the profession. And the students who were older than I, who knew you, would say, "Oh yeah, Dr. Cropley, he's a real badass guy. He practices medicine like without even using medicine, with just like without using medicine, like supplements or pills or things like that." And I thought to myself, well, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I guess 6 or 7 years, and that's what I'm doing. And
Incredible.
Thank you for showing me like what it looks like before I even had a figment of my imagination focused on that. So thanks for doing what you do. Practice like the truest, purest medicine as I feel it and see it. And I'd love to talk about how you got into your practice of pure medicine. Now I guess we call it like lifestyle medicine and mind-body medicine, and we've got all these kind of words that point to what it is that you've been doing for decades. So,
right. Yeah.
So share with us how you got into the field of naturopathic medicine, and specifically like how you honed your art as a physician and healer without using all the fancy bells and whistle tools that a lot of other people kind of grab onto.
Okay. I read a book in 1969 that was called Rational Fasting and the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Arnold Ehret. And what impressed me about the book, what awakened me about the book, was that we have the power to heal illness, and that in this case, through nutrition, we actually create our illnesses. And it was the first time I heard that we're not victims of illness, that illness is not entirely something external to us that afflicts us, but that more we are the authors of it and we have power to heal ourselves. That was shocking to me and stunning to me. And I remember thinking that everybody in the world is going to want to know about this. This is life-changing. So I began on my path. I was taken by it and began studying it more and more. And then, so fast forward to I become a naturopathic doctor, and I come here to Boulder, where I set up my practice. And before that, when I went to school, I had already studied a fair amount, and it was all nutrition at that time.
Before entering
Before
naturopathic
entering
medical
naturopathic.
school,
Mm-hmm.
you were some sort of nutritionist,
No,
or
I wasn't a nutritionist
but a
at all.
nutrition nerd, or
Nutrition nerd,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so all of my studies had been about the power of nutrition, which I'd never read. I didn't even know about herbs or homeopathic medicine or supplements, never even had heard of them until I went to naturopathic school. And then I found value in all of these, and I came out and I practiced as an eclectic naturopathic physician and doing primary care medicine. And I did that, and I also began really day one with teaching and giving public lectures and offering classes and having courses for my patients. And so then, as I progressed, there was a combination of factors. One of them was I was the first naturopathic doctor in Colorado. And I...
like the very first, like number one.
Number one. Actually, there was another... that's not accurate. There was another naturopathic doctor here, but he was also a chiropractor, and that was Tim Binder, great doctor, who was here before me but had a chiropractic license. So the point I was making was that I faced numerous incidents with the State Board of Medical Examiners. And so those were certain shaping that caused me to ask the question, if I compromise what I do to conform somewhat more to what the Board of Examiners is asking of me, will that compromise the way that I want to practice and what it is that I want to offer people? And each time I made the decision, no, I could let that go and still be providing people what I want to provide them. And that mixed with the power that I experienced, the clinical power and the power in my personal life of healing by nutrition and other lifestyle changes. That compared to what I was able to produce utilizing botanical medicines, homeopathic medicines, body work, naturopathic therapeutics. I would say that I would observe that if I give this patient these instructions and they follow my instructions for eating and self-care, and I didn't give them any of the medicines, what is the confidence that I have that they would heal? And what is the confidence that I have that they would heal if I did it the other way? And I found myself, each time I went, there's no question for me, but that with the lifestyle changes, they will heal. And without them, they will not. And it's not black or white. And I valued our naturopathic therapeutics. However, it's my calling, right, to be a teacher. And so I more and more began to emphasize education. And I can remember somewhere around 15 years or so into my practice, I remember sitting in my office and wishing that I had the courage to get rid of my entire pharmacy. Right. And
what was in your pharmacy at that point?
I was an eclectic ND, so I had a full range of botanicals that I liked.
Homeopathics
and supplements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Along with a few other things, but primarily that. Yeah, and so I
So you did have some you practiced with some tools of that sort for a long time.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So so I think you were on your way to saying, but like, did you slowly just
Mm-hmm.
move towards what you saw as being the most powerful and essential
Yeah.
point of
Yeah.
healing?
Mm-hmm. And making that transition has, throughout my career, and still does, uh, for me, uh, has require ever deeper levels of courage. Um, and um, I would say that the courage is uh, is facing my fear that I won't be a real doctor, right? That I'm moving away from being a doctor, and if I'm not a doctor and I'm not doing medicine, what am I? And there isn't a the same respect that goes with whatever I would call myself in place of a doctor. That's been uh, yeah, yeah, the lack of prestige that goes with practicing medicine
Yeah.
has, I think, been my biggest challenge, and and also how I represent myself to my patients, trying to explain what I do and why I do it. Uh,
Well, I'm sitting over here laughing because I can so relate to everything that you're saying.
can you?
Finishing medical school and having all these tools, and having this licensing board, and having this scope of practice that in Colorado is very non-existent and limiting, but nonetheless there is this hat of a doctor physician
Mm-hmm.
that is worn, and I feel like I'm not really, me personally, in my practice as well, I'm not really using all of my, I'm not ordering labs, I'm not doing all these things that all my other doctor friend colleagues are doing, and I'm feeling similarly in like this lack of like I earned this badge through
Mm-hmm.
medical school,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not wearing my badge in
Mm-hmm.
my practice.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of some guy, as we kind of explain it sometimes, we're glorified health coaches. Not
Mm-hmm.
to say that there's anything wrong with being a non-glorified health coach, like whatever that means,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of the actuality and like the what happens in consultations, it's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree? And how
Uh,
what is a consultation like with you?
so and no, I wouldn't agree that it's coaching.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
not what I do anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that what you're saying is accurate for most people, but
Hmm.
I would make a distinction about what I do, and we
Please.
could talk
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
But let's stay with that topic. Also, as naturopathic doctors, there is a stigma of not being real doctors attached to it.
Hmm.
And when I graduated in 1979, there I don't know that I ever encountered anybody who knew what a naturopathic doctor was.
Well, you were the
And
first one in Colorado,
yeah,
so you were showing people you were
yeah,
showing people, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and feeling that I needed to prove myself as a legitimate doctor was was something that I lived with, and I think is throughout our profession, and still throughout our profession to this day, to or I would hope it would be to a much less degree, because naturopathic doctors, in my experience in the world of holistic medicine, we are esteemed as the best trained doctors. That's my impression that I get from others is
In
that
natural,
that's right.
vitalistic
That's
healing
right.
modalities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're not the best trained in pharmaceutical medicine.
No,
We're trained, but we're not the best trained.
that's
There's
right.
better people at pushing pills.
Way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. So let's see. We were coming back to not our esteem. What was the question that you asked me then?
Well, I was sharing, like, sometimes I feel like
Oh
we're
yeah, yeah, yeah.
glorified health
Yeah,
coaches, do a
right.
lot of coaching
Oh yeah.
and more, but share with me Dr. Charley Cropley's
Say that I'm not
yeah,
that, or I'm something different than
you're
that.
not a glorified health coach, or
Uh-uh.
you're not a coach.
Well, in the I include that. I
Mm.
mean, I am that. However, my efforts um, in as a teacher are to awaken people and to have them understand and experience and wield their own self-healing power, and to know that I myself am the source of healing in my life. I am the source of strength, of flexibility, of endurance, of 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 healing, and that I do that because that's my very nature. I am the medicine, and that I want my patients to know that they are the medicine, and that it's not a technique
Mm.
that heals them. It is they themselves. So eating or movement have all the power that we know that they have. But what enables us to eat in a manner that heals us is us, right?
Mm.
We're that source.
Mm.
What so in the example of movement, what heals our body? Sure, strength training and yoga and Pilates and on are those as techniques, if you would, and yoga and Pilates, very mindful techniques, heal our body. And what is the actual source of that healing? That source of that healing is me, right? I use the teachings of yoga to heal my body. And so I will teach my patients, for example, that, let's say, if I have an injured wrist, that I can listen to that wrist and pay attention to it. And it speaks to me of, ooh, don't do that. Over here, that's better.
Mm-hmm.
Increase that, decrease that. It guides me. And that if I trace back what's going on, I can decrease the movements and trace back what is happening and what is authorizing those movements to myself. And it is my caring, my love for myself, my desire to heal that is what does that. And that is the power. So the work that I do with people, very much of the work that I do, in addition to training them in skillful behavior, is to, in this case of movement, is to inhabit their body, to wake up and realize who they are and that their healing in life depends on this, and to tune in to their love for themselves, to that they are the source of health, self-healing. And then they may express that through their breathing, through their posture, through the way they are in their body. That understanding is the most important thing. And I find, particularly with people who, in the case of movement, can't do much at all. I mean, I work with people who are bedridden, and this recognition is profound for them. And for people who don't really can't get themselves to exercise, this understanding that their presence with themselves is what is all important, and that they can befriend themselves, and that they can do real good for themselves. And the greatest good comes from their presence in their body. I find that I'm having success with patients, and that patients, surprisingly to me, patients that I didn't feel I could work with before, just come back and are in love with having found something that makes such a difference and is so meaningful to them.
What I hear you saying in my language that I like to use, it's funny how all these words are just, pointing to things that are formless.
Yeah.
But the words that I like to use is like the body's inner wisdom, and connecting with the body's wisdom, which is always speaking the truth, never leading us astray. And if and when we connect with that wisdom, we are all we ever could want or need in terms of the medicine, in terms of the information. I think so many people are living in this world looking for what's next, looking for the next diet or the next supplement or the next pill, like the next flat, shiny object commercial smacking them in the face. But if we look inward and tune in with the ever-present wisdom of what the body does want and need, and maybe it is a diet or a supplement at some point in time. Maybe there is something that the body is craving on that true level, but we need to go inward. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. This is how I approach that. Is I teach my patients the wisdom of the body, the wisdom of all four bodies, actually, the wisdom of our physical body, the wisdom of our heart or emotional body, the wisdom of our mental body, and the wisdom of our social body. And that each of these bodies is incessantly, constantly communicating to us what they need and how to care for them. And we ourselves are the knower of those bodies. We're not those. We're the intelligence and the caring in which these messages appear to us. And we are the healers of those bodies. And by listening to that wisdom and responding to it, that's how we heal.
I want to back up a little bit.
One other thing I want to add is that the not recognizing that healing is already and always happening. That's the only game in town. That's the only thing that's going on in naturopathic medicine, right? Is the body is always trying to heal. And so if we don't recognize it, then we go, oh, there's a problem here, and we go off to what can I throw at it, rather than this body knows how to heal, and it is communicating to me, and it is my presence and my listening and responding to that's how healing actually happens.
And that's the most important message, like the most important thing that I learned in naturopathic school is the body is healing itself always, and the role of the physician is to support that healing process, not change it or alter it or suppress it but just support it.
Yeah.
And obviously there's only so much of that support that a physician can do. A lot of that support is on the individual personal level, the one who is living with the dis-ease or the symptom,
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I could close that door.
It's all right. I'm sure that's the last motorcycle. But oh yeah, I wanted to back up because you were in the midst of talking about kind of your journey as a naturopathic physician and having this kind of medicine cabinet of herbs and homeopathics and supplements of various sorts, and coming to learn what the most powerful healing modality that you have is, and like how did that process go in terms of using less herbs and homeopathics and medicine cabinet medicine and using more of the self-healing techniques? And I don't know what the words are that you use to describe your main modality, self-healing, and awakening the self-healer within. Like what was that gradual process like for you? You talked about how it was this constant battle of some sorts in terms of the ego wanting to be the doctor and wanting to have all these tools, but
you're asking what my experience was and what my process was?
Yeah, and how long did it take for there to be this medicine cabinet and then for you to not use it?
The medicine cabinet was only, a point of demarcation in a process that has gone on throughout my entire career. So it was just gradual, and as I understood more and more our human self-healing capabilities, it would grow my passion and my fervor for teaching. So, for example, when I began my practice, one of the first things that I was led to do was something called the EST training, which was a training by a man named Werner Erhard, who later offered a training called the Forum, which is still in existence today. That was transformative to me, and Werner Erhard was one of the greatest influences in my life. And in there I saw how largely psychology, how being honest with ourselves, how learning how we create suffering for ourselves by not being able to actually experience what's taking place in our experience, but largely living in a story that we have about ourselves. So that was very valuable to me. I studied for a good while with a teacher who is not alive, but I studied his teachings. His name's Paramahansa Yogananda, and I studied Kriya Yoga and meditation very deeply with him. And Yogananda has been, well, I'll give you an example. Yogananda was able to, he could sleep in a car out here in Colorado in a winter's night in whatever, the clothes that we have on now. And when it became freezing, he would be able to alter the temperature of his body such that he could have sweat dripping off his face and sleep comfortably through the night in the car. The point being that this man um, had developed the power to direct processes in his body that to us we seem incapable to us.
So that was intriguing to you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I trusted and believed this man completely,
Mm-hmm.
and can sense
Yeah.
that this is true. That our healing potential is limitless as human beings, and what is possible to us through the power of our eating, through the power of our breathing and movements, through the power of our minds and emotions, and through the power of our relationships, completely limitless, I
Mm-hmm.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I was inspired by that to live it in my own life. And then um, increasingly, studies of uh, I'll say psychology, psychotherapy, psychotherapeutic techniques, as well as um, uh, relating skills. Um, I, the difference, the healing that I experienced in my own life when I discovered, just for example, how codependent that I was. Codependent being um, ever concerned about controlling what other people think and feel about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the power that I felt that I learned in from teachers like Abraham or Byron Katie, of Abraham teaching the the art of deliberate creation, which is essentially giving ourselves entirely to focusing on the good that we want rather than the outcomes that we do not want, and using our minds in that way. The power of science of mind. So all of these things were, I would learn them and go, I see how, I see the just life-giving changes that result in me, how much happier I am, how much more vital I am, and I wanted to share this with my patients, and for years, I for years I lived recognizing that a doctor's office and the functioning and the structure of a doctor's office is not designed for education, right?
Or healing most of the time.
Right. But even in a naturopathic's
Yeah.
doctor's office, I would
Mm.
say is designed for healing.
Yes.
And but minimally for education, and that education, if yoga is an example, why should a patient come to me and pay my hourly rate to instruct them in how to move their body when they could do, they could sign up for a month of yoga classes at a fraction of that, and that education uh, could best be delivered in another setting much more affordably and more effectively. So it was my dream through most of my career to have a health center that I viewed would be a combination of three things. It would be a combination of a church where there are teachings that people subscribe to. Basically, well, all of these things I've talked about, that the teachings of naturopathic medicine plus all the others, that these teachings would be offered, and people were enthused about the teachings of how to self-heal. How do we heal ourselves? So there's the church aspect where there is this teaching, and you can come to church, once a year on Christmas if you want to, or
Mm-hmm.
you can come every day if you want to. You can participate as you want. The second aspect of it was it would be like a school offering a curriculum where people could learn to heal. And the third aspect was that it would be like AA for the support and accountability and the mentoring and that type of closeness, the community bond to it. And I that was my aspiration. I tried to bring that about, but was never able to. And that has been for me. So speaking of the trials I went through in this, um, a something that has caused me that I felt um, incapable. I just judged myself for not being able to do it. And as I've learned over the years, the harm that self-judgment and self-criticism does when it's chronic and unconscious. I don't do that. However, I would say that has been one of the top disappointments in my career, is not being able to bring about what I wanted to do.
Well, as you hold the vision, I think the vision is held by many people of
Sure.
in some way or another of what you're talking about. And I think that the way I feel it and see it is that we're just not quite ready for that, I think, societally.
Yeah.
And that brings me to, one thought that's been kind of percolating is this idea of there's something that I selfishly am curious about and face regularly in my life. I've got judgment on the world and society that, the world and society, they just want a quick and easy fix. No one out there wants to do the
Right.
the work,
Right.
what if you call it, and live the life in order to thrive. People want to take the easiest route possible. And I recognize that I judge society and others if and when I see that in the world. And I'm curious how you relate with people, knowing that you have deep integrity in your passions and your connection with the purest medicine that you can offer. But there's this whole this whole phrase of meeting people where they're at, which I really don't like to do. I don't want to meet people at McDonald's, and I figure people come to Charley Cropley not to be met where they're at, but to be somewhere new. And so I guess my question is how do you bring or coax or invite people
Oh my gosh.
into this space?
Okay. So, first of all, is that I have shared this struggle
Yeah.
through my life and continue to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it it's incredibly difficult, and especially when I was beginning, I would very often, people might say something to me like, "Well, you seem more like a therapist than a doctor," or "Is this therapy?" Or not to mention what you've said of people who they're coming to me anticipating that I'm going to do something that cures them.
You've got something that they
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
and they're coming to get it from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not anticipating being involved in their health much at all, and wonder why I'm asking the questions that I ask. So that has I've had to work with that through all my career and still do, and incredibly trying for me. And I used to, I still judge those people. That is, the judgments come up. Before, there was a time when I was just stuck in them. I didn't know anything else, and didn't just judge them. I resented them. I I would say I wished bad for them. Uh, I borderline detested them. And
Yeah, I've got this thought going like, oh, that person needs a wake up call. That person needs a wake up call. And that's like, yes, they do, but it doesn't need to be harsh or extreme. Like, it can be just an insight. And
can be,
but
who knows what
so
what's going to be effective.
So your answer to my question is not very encouraging, Charlie. Well,
No, exactly.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah, yeah, we're joking here, but so what have you learned in this realm of?
Well, but back to it's not very encouraging.
Yeah,
Is that's right. I mean, this path. That's one of the challenges that you will face, and as I say, like other ones that we've mentioned, I face this today. And before I get to how I face it now, I have throughout my career wrestled with being with a patient who, my experience is, I'm not connecting with this person. I am not excited about working with this person. And being able to tell them that, and to be able to tell them that in a way that does not suppress their desire for healing, but directs it somewhere that I think they'll be better served. I have it's only a few times that I've even done that. And most of those times have been recently. And I have asked myself if the challenge that I face is that I feel that I should try to help every person that comes to me, meaning not help them by referring them somewhere else. I can or can't do that, but that I should be willing to work with them no matter how it feels to me, that they have come to me, and to try to help them. So that's what I've done almost 100% of the time. And it's not quite as high, but it's somewhere in the high 90s, that if I don't feel connected to the patient, that we might do a couple visits together, but that it doesn't work out, and that my experience of it has been one of struggle, and I didn't like doing it. And now, that's still with me. And actually, more recently in this, I went through a time of wanting to, and actually of referring people more readily, saying, and in a kind way and a useful way. And yet I also, again, have, the pendulum has swung so that I'm trying to help that person myself. They're here asking for my help, and I try to find ways that I can reach them and work with my own judgments and resistances in this. And so that's my work. And I will say that it is said of Buddha that having attained enlightenment, he was faced with, I'm free. There is no more suffering for me. And his intent was to live in his freedom for himself, and he was beseeched by um, other other divinities, shall we say, to please consider the world full of suffering people and don't abandon them and come back and teach them. And Buddha went, look, I've worked on this. I know what I know. And there's hardly anybody who can understand what I can understand. And who can understand it. And yes, I could help those few, but the rest, it's too damn hard, right? I don't know how to do this. And and that to a much less degree than Buddha, but the same issue is what I face and what you face. And it's our struggle.
And it sounds like in the struggle, you're at peace. More than you were yesterday. I don't know.
Yes, I'm growing.
Yeah.
And this is a conversation with my patients as well, but with all of us is look, you're going to suffer no matter what we do. And I don't mean that I can't say to somebody, yeah, we can get you through your migraine headaches, but I mean the experience of suffering is no human being doesn't suffer, right? Mm-hmm. We all suffer. However, our suffering we can transform just misery and suffering into truly meaningful and satisfying experiences, so that this struggle with how to teach people and the suffering associated with it, is incredibly meaningful for me to listen to my judgments, my resistances, my not liking it, and working with those to be able to I'll find peace there, and to that's meaningful for me to engage with that. Really meaningful for me. Yeah.
What do you think the future of healthcare is like? Because what we're talking about is deep healing stuff.
Yeah.
Deep healing stuff. And how do you think in the future this deep, holistic, multidimensional healing approach is going to infuse and enmesh with the current world of healthcare, which is so superficial, which is so disease management?
Yeah. Well, the world of healthcare includes everything from viewing illness as an enemy to be suppressed and all symptoms made to go away by whatever means, and usually by violent means of pharmaceuticals and radiation and surgery. And there's that understanding of healthcare, the lowest level right there, all the way to the highest level of awakening people to their own self-healing power and implementing that, and then in between being functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, and counseling and teaching and all of this. And that's all in existence now.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see as the future is that we're going to get unimaginably better at every one of those. And that the in humanity as a whole now, we face extinction, right? For the first time, there is the possibility of the whole world being annihilated by whatever means, or certainly,
The
if
human
not
race.
annihilated, taking,
Yeah.
really taking a hit, right?
Yeah.
So, and so, for example, one of those would be the changes in our environment. The evolution of healthcare is going to be shaped by a change in human consciousness, which we have to face. And one example of having to face that is the condition of our environment, and which some people call climate change. And our environment is becoming increasingly uninhabitable. And nobody knows how to solve that problem, right? That's one of those wicked problems that lots of people have ideas about. But in order to change it, is going to require that human beings come into a relationship with our environment that is respectful, that is kind, and that obeys the laws of the universe as manifest on this planet, right? Mm-hmm. In the same way, that consciousness in health is the health of our country now, is the statistics on it are that we're degenerating in the same way as our environment is. And the solution to that, again, is going to require a change in consciousness in which we recognize that these laws are inviolable, the laws of our body and of our psyche, and that we start living in harmony with those. And that change is going to come about. And that is going to be the central healing that takes place in humanity is a shift in consciousness. So that's going to dictate the others. Along with this, there are going to be amazing changes in technology, right? That will accompany medicine, and presumably changes in natural, non-harmful therapeutics as well. So all of this that's what I see as the future of healthcare. But the future of healthcare, there will be no future of anything without a change in consciousness.
Yeah, which I think is inevitably happening.
You bet.
It's like we're here using our brains and trying to figure out a solution, but the solution is happening, and maybe we're awakening to it, unanimously, collectively.
Yeah.
And
well said.
It's like sometimes we need to get out of the way a little bit and
bit.
allow that wisdom to guide us, and not just try to overpower it, because that seems to be oftentimes doing more harm than good. Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of wrapping up our conversation, Charley, and you've been sharing so much wisdom and inspiration, I feel, about just the imperative of connecting with our wisdom, connecting with our power, connecting with the self-healing potential that we all hold. And you've been sharing how it's not a prescriptive process. There's no no practice, no technique, no pill, nothing that you can give. But if you could, encapsulate something and force feed it into the collective masses, or as I sometimes ask, if you could drip something into the water supply so that the humanity would have to consume it, what would that be?
That's easy.
What would that be for the betterment of humanity?
That's
This is too easy, huh?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Kindness,
Huh.
right? Or kindness and wisdom, you could say. But that's kindness is the universal medicine. God is love. It is love that brings about a migraine headache, right? The migraine headache is the cure for foolish and selfish behavior in the ways we eat, we move, we think, we relate. We are harming ourselves, and a migraine headache or asthma or MS is a benevolent messenger pointing us to it is a manifestation of fierce, ruthless kindness that is a necessary manifestation to awaken us to love ourselves and to embody love in our actions.
So kindness is everywhere.
Kindness is
the life, is the
Absolutely.
breath of life.
is God.
Kindness is
Right.
God. And
If you go for God,
Yeah.
it is the nature of the universe. And if you look, like in naturopathic medicine, we speak of vis medicatrix naturae, the healing power of nature, and I used to think of nature as nature, the trees and the clouds and all of that, which is one way. But the question is, what is the nature of nature, right? What is behind nature? And, well, you can try and figure that out and debate it, but we can ask ourselves, what is our nature? And in examining our own nature, what is consistent for every human being, what drives us, our entire motivation is to be happy, to experience well-being, and to avoid suffering. That is which, if that in kindness, I mean, that's kindness, that's compassion, that's love. That is what we want for our children, for everyone, for our children, for ourselves, is that they be healthy, that they be happy, and that they not suffer, right? And behind every single action we perform can be traced back to that motive. If we smoke a cigarette, it's a short-sighted act of kindness to relieve us of the anxiety or whatever it is that a cigarette will heal, right? Yeah.
It's the best medicine that we have for ourselves in the current moment.
Yeah, and I think another thing that people don't understand, but that we understand as naturopathic doctors, is that illness. You can see illness as being benevolent. People have trouble seeing, well, how is cancer a benevolent messenger, or MS? However, if we look at something as simple as a hangover, right? A hangover is the cure for consuming excess alcohol. If we don't heed that messenger, that would progress to where someone would come in here with cirrhosis of the liver and be suffering miserably. And again, a person might say, well, how is cirrhosis of the liver a benevolent messenger? But that messenger has been speaking throughout that person's life.
Yeah. The message gets louder and louder if we're
Exactly.
not tuned in.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
kindness gets more fierce, being delivered in a way that will be effective.
Yeah. The kindness gets more fierce. I like that. Fierce kindness.
Yeah.
So back to this, kindness in the water for everyone to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And kindness is everywhere already. So really what I'm hearing you say is just awakening into the kindness that is ever present already.
Benjamin, that's healing, dude.
I get it.
That's the work.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So
and awakening to there's nothing we love more, there's nothing we want more. It's an absolute, it is the primal biologic need, right? Is kindness. We cannot live without it. And kindness isn't just me saying nice things to you. Mm-hmm. Kindness is the power that heals us of our self-harming behavior. Kindness is, if I were to use another example, I am preparing a series of teachings that I'm doing, and I experience apprehension about it, and a lot of struggle in trying to do it, not being able to do it right, and fear that, damn, if I don't do these things well, there's a lot depending on my doing it. And I will say to myself, Charley, if you bomb at these teachings, if you don't even have them prepared on time, whatever you're afraid of happening, if that happens, I will love you and befriend you and help you. And that is, then I go, okay, what's going to be waiting for me is not harsh criticism and judgment, but my own kindness. And that enables me to see the task before me in the light of kindness rather than in the light of fear. Mm-hmm. And I show up in the task completely differently. It's yeah. And that begins instantaneously. I don't have to even worry about the future, because really what I'm worried about is bottom line is the way that I'm going to treat myself in it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a total game changer. Living out of kindness for yourself. Mm-hmm. And what I hear you saying is unconditional kindness, not just being kind to yourself when you look good in the morning or when you do, your pull-ups in the morning or whatever it is, but unconditional kindness when you fall down and make a fool of yourself.
Yeah. Unconditional kindness is also how we heal addiction. Like being kind to myself while I'm smoking a cigarette.
That's the antidote.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It transforms the whole experience. We're looking to be free of the addictions. That's the motive of kindness itself, is to free us. And kindness is the very means that frees us. But most people, their kindness of wanting to curtail their addiction to sweets leads them to self-critical and oppressive ways of going through a caring process. And it only serves to strengthen criticism and all that goes with that, rather than kindness is the means and the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, hearing you, the message is really simple and clear.
Exactly.
The message is almost like uncomfortably simple and clear.
Yes.
And for the majority of people who hear the message, they probably feel the same way. So what do you say, kind of like, maybe what are some, it's like, final thoughts or words on driving this home to the people who are like, but don't I also, like, there's so much else that I need to do in order to heal my mind and my body and my soul. Like there must be more to it.
I don't think I get too much of that.
No.
Uh-uh.
People are okay with the simplicity.
Well, here's the thing. We're speaking of it now intellectually,
Yeah.
and the instruction that I do has a conceptual component to it. Of course, you're seeing it here.
Yeah.
But the actual education or transmission is experiential.
Right.
And so I engage people in befriending themselves in ordinary ways. For example, a short breathing meditation of imbuing our breathing with our kindness and being kind to ourselves in the face of, in this case, a person who faces illness and the challenges of changing their behavior to heal that illness. And they experience the power of it. And it is transformative. It's transformative.
Yeah.
And then the work, everybody goes, just what you're saying. This is so simple. However, implementing it, like
Living it,
being
yeah.
able to give love to ourselves and to open our hearts and receive our own love, that is the greatest challenge in life. Right? And the most rewarding thing in life. And yeah, real simple to say. I mean, Jesus and Buddha, everybody's. It's the message of the people we esteem as the most wise. It's consistent through all of them. That same thing. And we're here like, wow, that's a great idea. You know? Yeah. And I want to speak to something that you asked me that I did not address. And it is, so how do I present myself now when if somebody Googles a naturopathic doctor, I'm not going to fit their expectations. How do I do that? And my answer is, I do that in every way that I can. I've gone through a process of realizing that I actually try to hide what I'm really passionate about and what I do because I think I need to represent myself in a way that people are going to go, oh, he's a doctor, or that people are going to like. And increasingly, I have become more authentic and taking the risk of telling people and putting myself out in the world as I actually am. So the answer to this is that in everything I do, so for example, my website, I want to say as well as I can, this is the way I work. This is the people that like this. You know, this is who really likes this, and to say exactly what I do as clearly as I can. I convey that in my forms. In my forms, I ask people specific questions about their eating, about their movements, about their thinking, about their relationships, about their abilities to heal, to direct their own self-dialogue in their mind, to heal afflictive emotions, how happy they are. These things, my forms reflect that. When I meet with them, I sit down and explain to them the work that I do, that I use behavior as medicine, and that I use kindness in order to heal behavior. And so I'm wanting to be seen for what I am, and I've faced these challenges of trying to make myself look the way I think people out there are going to be interested in. That's how I do it now.
Things are coming into congruence and alignment.
Yes. Yeah.
What you see is what you get. And I think that's powerful because people resonate with the truth and authenticity.
This is great. in my teaching, I teach a lot of doctors now.
Yeah.
My teaching is physician, heal thyself. I teach the physicians to be teachers. And physician, heal thyself is the golden rule for physicians, because you cannot guide people. You can hand them, here, go do a paleo diet, right? But you cannot guide them through the human challenges that they face in being able to do that, to deal with their cravings, for example, unless you have dealt or are actively dealing with your cravings. You won't have the ability to teach them how to be able to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the physician heal thyself is inevitable. You know, if physicians are healing thyself, just like every other, you know, we're people too.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
people too.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, Charley, this has been great to sit down and connect and hear more about your journey and evolution, and you coming into that aligned space that, you know, I think that when I met you 7 years ago or whatever the first time was, I think you were there. And from my perspective, I sensed that there was authenticity and integrity and alignment, and it sounds like it's just ever deepening for you and for all of us.
Exactly. And yes, I'm not aligned. I'm more aligned than what I was.
Yeah.
And the challenges I have, I'll say, met many challenges that I no longer face. Many challenges, you know, being addicted to substances and in the way I use my mind. I've met these, and as well as I can see, there's no end to the path. And so I struggle with fear and craving and self-doubt and everything that we all do. And I'm a work in progress, just like everybody.
Work in progress, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. No, I definitely appreciate that, because I think that, you know, it's not uncommon for doctors or professionals to put on their suit and mask and interface from what they think they should be rather than what they really are.
Yep.
So
I spent a lot of time doing that. I still do.
Yeah.
I still do.
To some extent, but it's chipping away.
It's chipping away.
It's chipping away.
Yeah.
And thanks for, you know, showing us what the journey is like, because, you know, it's like there's no, it's a journey, not a destination. It's
Totally.
And
Totally.
thanks for showing us that.
Yeah.
And so people, listeners who are resonating and want to connect with you, Dr. Charley Cropley, where can they find you, your website, and are you on social media and stuff?
CharleyCropley.com.
That's
Yep.
it.
Yeah, and I'm on social media
And you're
as
on
well.
Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah. I personally have never been attracted to Facebook and am largely unskilled, but I have a staff who represents me there and who gives me messages that I need to respond to.
You got your people on the front lines of Facebook.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks again. And I know people will reach out and connect in any way that they can. So peace and love.
Peace and love.
Until next time.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Benjamin.
Yeah.